Simgiigyet, Ayook, Huwilp, Loam Scorched Earth, Huwilp, Laxatun, the Dalgamuukw, La Wish, Gitxsan, Lilliget, Kant, Adaakw, Nidit. My mother, my father, all of us as their children went to the Indian residential school. I started working on this address before the discovery of the hundreds of unmarked graves of our nation's children. The death of these children is just a small example of the treatment we have received from the colonial government. I'm going to read a poem done by a woman. My theme today is going to be geared towards women. When they buried the children, what they didn't know, they were lovingly embraced by the land, held and cradled in a mother's heart. The trees wept for them. With the wind they sang mourning songs their mothers didn't know to sing. Bending branches to touch the earth around them, the Creator cried for them, the tears rained. Our Mother Earth held them until they could be found. Now our voices sing the morning song with trees and wind. Lighted sacred fires burn, making sure they are never forgotten as we sing for justice. Abigail Equihawk, that's a woman. This address is for all First Nations, all our friends, and all those concerned about the third world conditions of our brothers and sisters in North and South America and the world at large. We are looking for help to bring pressure to bear on the oppressive colonial government who has a stranglehold on the Gitxsan. When the first European settlers came here, we had a reciprocal relationship with them. They were starving and freezing to death because they didn't know how to live on our land. We brought them into our houses and fed them and taught them how to live on our land. When the first settlers first came here, they said they discovered this land. They said this land was terra nullius, which basically means the land is empty with no one living there. The doctrine of discovery was manipulated by the newcomers, wherein the English court or the Privy Council declared North America terra nullius, with no inhabitants and no legal land tenure. They created this legal fiction in order to make their description of the doctrine of discovery fit so that they could say they discovered North America. The legal system of the settlers is based on fantasy, where they would lie in order to steal this land away from us. What does this say about the judiciary? I thought they meted out court decisions in an unbiased way. Systemic discrimination is totally ingrained within the Canadian government, right from traffic laws to the Canadian Constitution. Decisions are handed down from the judiciary, which discriminates against us. We cannot make a living on our own land. We can only exist. What happened to the Royal Proclamation, which gives the government a mandate to make sure our rights are protected. Our people are a very industrious people. There was a thriving economy before contact. We had trade routes where our rivers were roads. One such trade route is the Grease Trail. Our people are a progressive people. They saw the implements the settlers had, so they traded furs for these implements. And it was the fur trade that fueled the Industrial Revolution. The settlers saw the richness of our land and they got greedy. They started to hate us because we were in their way. The white supremacist mentality of the European settlers is not a new movement. They brought it with them from Europe. They steadily encroached on our land and imposed their form of government on our land. They came to the conclusion that, quote, we have to do something about these savages, end quote. So they set about killing us off. They set bounties on our heads. They formulated alienation and assimilation laws to kill the Indian in the Gitxsan. Our culture was outlawed. Our feast, which we call Lilliget, was outlawed. My great uncle Tom Campbell, who is Simgiigyet, now held the name held by my brother Lester Moore. He held feasts in 1932, went underground and held them underground. His feast was raided and he was sent to Ocala prison. It is their legacy. It is the legacy of the Tom Campbells of this world. That's why I'm fighting for our rights to this day. The displacement of Gitxsan from their land on reserves was the first alienation and assimilationist policy implemented by the colonial government. Our people fought this policy. They didn't want to live the white man's way. They loved living on the land. Our people rebelled and had skirmishes with the police enforcers. The brutality inflicted by the police of that day left many of our people dead. They were the right hand of the colonial government. Many of our people were murdered and tortured in prisons. The Northwest Mounted Police was created in 1873. This date is considered the start of the RCMP. The RCMP shares deep ties to Canada's Confederation in 1867. During the removal of the Gitxsan from their land, it was the RCMP who enforced the removal order made by the government, and it is them who enforce the injunctions issued by government and third parties against blockades today. On our land, we had long houses, which were used as schools, feast halls, smoke houses, storage places where they kept thousands of dried fish. Each morning, the chief would get up at the break of dawn and wake the children. He would bring them to a corner, and they would be taught everything about the land. Each child would learn about their history, we call Adaakw, and who their relatives were. This knowledge was kept secret from other houses because they knew that knowledge was valuable. The second phase of the alienation and assimilationist policies was the removal of children from their homes into Indian residential schools, called IRSs. The children are the flowers of the Gitxsan Nation. They are our future. And the more children you have in your house, the richer you are seen in the eyes of the other houses. We value our children, and if they die, we commemorate them with a feast. With the feast, we strengthen our ties to the land, to our laws, and to our Adaakw. These children are honored and given a proper burial with markers to show who they were. They were not just summarily discarded and buried in shallow graves. The purpose of the removal of the Gitxsan from their land was so that they could forget the teachings of their chiefs. They learned about place names, names of streams, mountains, plateaus, berry picking spots, hunting grounds. They learned about the seasons, how to foretell how the weather was going to be for the next winter. If the winter was going to be bad, they were prepared for it. This is how our children are groomed for chieftainship. The children were alienated from the love and nurturing of their parents and from their extended relatives. The children who came back from IRSs didn't know how to show love because in the IRSs they were not shown love. They could not hug their children because they felt detached from them. This was intergenerational. The health system for us is third world conditions. Many of our people die at the hands of the doctors. With the dysfunction on the reserves in cramped conditions, exacerbated by an inadequate health system, life expectancy on reserves is very short. When we are in gatherings, it looks like the participants have been brought to the gatherings by the handy dart. Who are we dealing with? We are dealing with a government who changes their laws from day to day to fit their needs. How can a government continue to oppress a people on the one hand and on the other offer truth and reconciliation? The intergenerational effects of the alienation and assimilationist policies are still ongoing. On reserves, we have overcrowding, the welfare system. Our people are in a dissociative condition, which basically means shell shock, and live with violence, abuse, and sexual abuse. Our people are dying by the thousands every year through drug overdose, alcoholism, incarceration, violence, rape, and murder. We are the disappeared. We have no voice. We are disenfranchised. We are the marginalized. While our people are suffering from the state of dissociation, the government is making treaties with them. Imagine a government with all the money and they wave it in front of people who are basically starving. This is what the government is doing. There is another hidden policy the government has, and that is the Scorched Earth policy. The government, along with their friends, the big corporations of this world, know that they have to settle with Gitxsan, so they are destroying the land with open pit mining, gas and oil pipelines, fracking. Our dreams of getting back our land in its pristine state are just that, dreams. From our practices and traditions on our land flows our laws. The basic law is a law of respect. Respect for the animals, the environment, the waters, the air that we breathe. From this respect, we get the laws of land such as trespass. Do not play with fish because it is our food. The law which incorporates scarcity of food results in the law of trespass because there is not enough food to feed more than our nation. We commune with nature. We have a symbiotic relationship with the animals, where the animals sacrifice themselves to us as food, and we ensure that they are protected. This means that our way of life is one of conservation, where we strive for sustainability of our way of life, our environment, and our brothers and sisters, which are the animals of our land. The land is our spirit, the fish, all the animals. We are the land, the bodies of many thousands of generations of our people built up this land. Therefore, every inch of our land is sacred. Our system of traditional governance is in place. It is called the hereditary system. We have our laws in place. We have our land, which is our bread basket. We have our At, which is our fishing sites, which gives us the human right to food. We have our people. We are a government. We will take control of the children. They will not be apprehended anymore by the government. We will not allow the continued alienation policy of our children by government child agencies. We will take control of our fisheries. The government has mismanaged our fish for far too long, and our basic human right to food is being denied. The fish is ours. They spawn on our land, they go to the ocean and come back every 4 years to their home, our land. The fish is ours. We will take control of our education system. The government pays for the children's education, but they do not get any kind of education. We will take control of our health system. We will take control of everything, the forests, our minerals, and all of our resources. We will use the Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous Peoples Act as our tool. We will become self-sufficient. With our land in our possession, our wealth will flow from our land tenure. We will shed our shackles of oppression. We will shed the yoke which was put on us by the colonial government. We will take our nation and teach them to be strong with self-esteem. Our nation will be on the heel. The backbone of our nation are women. We are a matrilineal society. I remember the words of my mother. She said, "Nemedisum Gilgish Lilliget na ulskitro lachkench. Dem haldem gudesum nit dem imsum tlamot. At the daneder de ach dem het dem gudesum nit dem imsum budget." Translated, this means, you, in the plural, do not bypass someone who is lying on the road who needs your help. You have to pick him up and help him. If he cannot stand, you will pack him. This reminds me of a time I was going through the hardest time of my life, and there was a small glass tablet on the window. My mother told me to read it, but I didn't. Mom kept pointing to the tablet, but I wouldn't read it. One day I finally got up and read Footsteps in the Sand. I read it and the silent tears started to flow. My mother was walking around behind me. I couldn't turn around because then she would see I was crying. Today, when I remember my turbulent life, I realized that it was my mother that was carrying me. As she carried me, she would fall, and through a weakened state, she kept on walking. A mother picked me out to be the chief. She stood behind me and uplifted me financially and spiritually. This is our way. We're a matrilineal people, with our women folk standing behind us, helping us every step of the way. As time went by, my mother started to age. Her injuries from carrying us was evident. I came home and me and Stephen cared for our mother. We carried her around as she carried us throughout her life. I would bathe her and change her clothes. As I would change her clothes, I would steal little hugs from her. As I was leaving her room, she called my name. I turned around and there she was with her arms outstretched. I hugged my mother for the first time. Even though our mother died, She still lives on, spotless, lives on because her name is Gitxsan, hereditary. The government made many policies, has used many ways, and made many efforts against the Gitxsan, the main one being one of genocide. All have failed. All my relations, when I say all my relations, what I'm actually saying is, I love you. Thank you very much.
Simgiigyet Sigidam Hanat, Gael Llwai, Gisgas Padaki, and Spayach Galzap. Our Gitxsan logo is the canoe. It represents the 150-year journey we have all taken together. But within the confines of the colonial system, we have been paddling in circles. For 150 years, the land, our mother, and our livelihood has been incrementally torn from our protection, first from our ancestors and on through the generations. As a people dependent on the land for sustenance and self-determination, there is no more severe a blow to our identity than to be separated from the land. For 150 years, we have persisted in our traditional ways, trying to right the canoe on its turbulent journey. We have witnessed great loss of language and culture and our home. Today, our rights and our tenure remain. We have never relinquished them. Though we are all part of this journey and have gained knowledge of the history which started out smoothly and turned turbulent, systemic colonial policies remain cemented into the federal and provincial governments to assimilate our people. We want Canada and the world to know that we are still here. We live, we breathe, and we walk beside you. We aren't the sum of artifacts in museums, remnants of pre- and post-contact on display for non-Indigenous children during annual field trips. We aren't the occasional sensationalized news headlines for the world to be shocked over. And though many of our peoples continue the traumatic struggle to shed the vestiges of residential schools, of the slow and steady genocide of the Crown, we aren't all struggling. What we are doing is working tirelessly to regain, reconcile, renew, and revive our Gitxsan ways. This will never end. We will never stop protecting and fighting for our rights and our title to the 33,000 square kilometers of jurisdiction. This is our responsibility, our fiduciary duty to our current and future generations. As the horrific trauma was relived by our people with the uncovering of 1,000 plus residential student graves, a part of Canada's ugly history that revealed the treatment of Indigenous people as a result of colonialism. The Gitxsan are not shocked. We have always known of the masses of the children that never returned from capture. We have mourned them in the past, and we mourn them today. Sadly, these same government policies continue to hinder us and our children today. In fact, it is only in the past 50 years that we have advanced our recognition as a people. For this, we had to fight in the courts simply to be treated humanely in this country called Canada. The human right of equality has been distributed without equal measure among citizens of this country. The systemic attempt to strip us of our culture, our language, and our traditions has had long-standing consequences. Right outside our doors, members of the community still go missing along the highway of tears. Mothers mourn for the loss of their children to incarceration, suicide, and addiction. The ill are dying and shuffled between hospitals, but fail to get the healing they need. Those who have the position and the power to protect us often fail. While the BC and Canadian governments have sat beside our hereditary chiefs at the treaty negotiation table for the past 20 years and send letters of consultation to our hereditary chiefs, their own antiquated policies are set to refuse us recognition as a traditional government or legal entity eligible for government grants to help us rebuild and develop an economy to sustain ourselves on our own lands. In fact, government funds are only eligible to Indian Act bans established during colonialism. And while we may all be the same Gitxsan people, the bands are operating at cross purposes from our traditional nation with ancestral lands. As recognized in the Delgamuukw court case of 1997, close to 25 years later, that recognition means as little as the paper it was drawn on. This leaves the Gitxsan Nation fragmented by a bureaucracy that was never ours. The bands, the Huwilps, the watersheds, how do we work in collaboration to utilize government funds to support all Gitxsan people? We need to come together, work together, paddle our canoe together. But at the present, we are being subdued through division. Indigenous Services Canada, while they may recognize us and sit with us, they are unable to assist us in any type of funding without involving the Indian Act bands. We need this to have a sustainable economy to provide for the next Gitxsan generations. At least industry has made efforts to work with the Huwilp owners, the hereditary chiefs, when they plan any activity on the lands. For example, the pipelines, the mining companies, and energy projects. The Gitxsan Development Corporation, which is the Gitxsan business arm, has willing industry partners that want to work with our people to start major projects in an area that could create a secure economy that will benefit the North, but particularly the Gitxsan, which is severely economically depressed. Industry opportunities are here. For example, AirX for the pellet plant, Chemco, which is the CN rail contractor, Vitacor for melt-blown material. These are ventures where industry recognizes the hereditary chiefs, our authority, and our responsibilities. In the forest industry, we're dealing with provincial government policies that don't truly respect us as hereditary government. Contracts are structured in a way that obliterates our meaningful participation. It's more of a take it or leave it attitude, not a negotiation. The Canadian government that commits to reconciliation leaves us at a loss. Most business opportunities for reconciliation are squandered. This leaves the Gitxsan with weak financial capability, but we want the world to know that we are open for business, and we look forward to hearing from you. We will overcome. Our children, our Madzagale, will overcome. The Madzagale means flower in our Gitxsan language. It represents our children. They are our most precious and important resource. If our Madzagale are not nurtured, nourished, and loved, they will never bloom. We know this as a result of our lost generations and the residential school systems. But we are resilient. We are still here. Years ago, my grandfather told me that he wanted me to be a real Indian. I didn't understand at the time what he meant, but it took me leaving my home to Vancouver to discover who I am and where I come from. I'm proud to be an Indian. I am Gitxsan. Our goal today is for our Gitxsan children to know where they come from, to stop removal of any more Gitxsan Madzagale into care and non-Indigenous care. Too many times we're dealing with outdated colonial policies. We are over-monitored. We have a higher bar to reach when trying to get our children back. Much of the colonial history has contributed to Indigenous children being taken into care. Rather than scooping them up and taking them away, what if government-run child services would try to nurture and support struggling Gitxsan parents? What if this would reduce the apprehensions? What if we changed old school policies? My own cousin, Cindy Blackstock, has spent the past decade fighting Canada to ensure all Indigenous children are treated fairly and equally. Canada is presently appealing this sliver of progress in the courts since this decision was made. As Gitxsan parents, we are struggling some very tough challenges with our children, challenges also seen with youth across Canada. However, we lack resources, services, cultural healing centers. If we treat our Gitxsan children through holistically, culturally appropriate healing and health versus labels and incarceration, just imagine what our future generations can be. The loss of identity in our children is an actionable wrong, and we will relentlessly fight to make it right. It would be another tragedy for Canada to fail to respond to the importance of this moment. Small acts and gradual changes are not enough. I have spent 20 years educating people about Indigenous history in Canada. Some were just going through the process. Now they are taking our knowledge and moving up the ladder. Others were thirsty to know. They wanted to provide support for Indigenous peoples, not looking for recognition or advancement, but to move into action and make change. With the 1,000 plus unmarked graves found in the past month, we have all witnessed the turbulent water, and we need leaders to steer us in the right direction together. We need to be paddling as a unit, cheering each other on to keep the fight for our rights top of mind for Canada's leaders. What does the world want for the First Peoples of Canada? We need your support. We need you in our canoe. But more importantly, we need your action as we continue on our journey to a better life for our people, for everyone. We will not be satisfied until the Gitxsan Nation stands together, strong, unified, secure, and prosperous. Daxgyet.
Simgiigyet, Sigidamanach, and Huwilp. Our children, the Mazalay, our land, our Lilliget, our rivers, our Adaakw. You have heard these words and concepts. These are as important to the future as they have been to our past. The Government of Canada, through legal cases, have acknowledged that the Gitxsan have always had a structured society with a government of hereditary chiefs. We own our Lilliget. We are a share and care society. Our system, our clan, our house, our Huwilp work as a cohesive supportive system. Before contact, we supported all our people. We supported those unable to look after themselves. We looked after our youth, our elders, and the ones that are not well. Our system was set up long before colonial old age pension, welfare, and social services. We provided for our people and looked after them because of our traditional fee system. We provided for each other when one of our own passed on. We are a clan system intertwined, a support system that works for our people. You have heard that even our feasts were sent underground during colonialism. Feasts are an epicenter of our intertwined support society. Let me explain. My mother died in January years ago. To prepare for her feast, I used up all my personal resources in her memory. One month later, my uncle passed away, handing down the chief's name to me. I sat with my wife worried I could not perform my duties to my ancestors. We had used all the resources, but we needed not worry. Our traditional Gitxsan system kicked in. My grandfather clan came forward. Kail. My other grandfather clan came forward. Jibasa. My father clan, Wimanoshik, came forward. Our system kicked in, providing the resources for my uncle's feast. When the feast came, I had resources in my house and was able to honor my ancestors in a Gitxsan way. This system of intertwined care is well designed and our people are supported. This is who we are as a nation. We echo to Canada, we echo to the world. We have always been a structured society. To help every Gitxsan in our nation, this is our future. However, the way we are treated, even owning our Huwilp, will continue to be our biggest challenge. Though we have clear title and jurisdiction, it remains 25 years after the Delgamuukw court case undefined by the court. The Crown continues to look at our Huwilp as Crown land, and they continue to benefit from our resources while we may not, by law. I've worked all my life to help Gitxsan people, though we call our home, the house that we live in is not owned by us. On paper, it is house federally owned, though we have certificate of possession. The Crown must relinquish our homes to us so that we can create better health and wellness, speak and share our language with our youth, practice our tradition and pass on our culture of dignity, our future generations in homes that are truly our own. Though these major issues we have to deal with, we know the land is ours. We know the time is ours. To tell the whole nation, the people of British Columbia, the people of Canada, the people of the world, that the Gitxsan Huwilp is here on our land with our people to stay. We call on the leaders of Canada, we call on the Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, to right the wrongs of the Crown today, not tomorrow. And while we need to deal with the terrible policies and treatment by the Crown, we have the strength of the land tenure system. We own our Huwilp, our land. We own our resources on and under the 33,000 square kilometers of our home. It has taken our Gitxsan elders at least 40 years to prop up and educate our people in a colonial system so that they are set up and trained to propel our Gitxsan Nation into the future with the Canadian and global business system. Our people are now doctors, educators, nurses, business leaders, tourism operators, and lawyers. We need to have timely, rational, and respectful conversation with the government based on case law that confirms our ownership of our jurisdiction and must convert all of our resources, both human and natural, to positive economics of our nation. We must run our own businesses, own our own land, on our land. We must develop Gitxsan tourism in the most sustainable ways. We must develop our resources from our Huwilp and Adaakw. And when any economic development from the Hereditary Chief's Huwilp, a percentage must go to our government pot for the future of our children, for our unborn children who become Gitxsans in the wombs of our matriarchs. We do need to develop this formula and structure ourselves for the long term. We must put a stop to our division created by the Indian Act, which set up the Indian bands. We need to keep our youth on our land with their people. We need cultural healing centers to better our health outcomes, to eradicate drug addictions. We need to educate our youth to develop the economy of the Gitxsan and to be a robust part of the economy of this country. We need to be educating, training, and hiring our young people so they have the secure pathway in the Gitxsan Nation. We must leave more for our unborn, but if we are going to be self-sufficient as Gitxsan people, we need to do a lot of work. The Gitxsan Development Corporation must support our people, elevate them so that they can do work and build on the resources we have. We as educated Gitxsan people will speak the language of business people, understand the economics of our nation, our country, our world, and talk to business minds that are out there. It is different for us to assimilate in a world of business because you must be heartless to be a businessman. But we will overcome. Attitudes will have to change, and our intertwined care and share society will need to adjust to the world business in the name of self-sufficiency. We have many resources and there is such opportunity. We need to create a master plan on how we can use these resources, always thinking about our environment. We need to be developing our Huwilp for the benefit of our people. What we do with our resources and land is for them. We must put funding away for them so they can have an economy that is noticed by Canada. This is our future. The fish are our staple. They are starting to disappear to overfishing by warming waters, depleted stocks that our nation rely on to sustain themselves. We have closed our rivers, are developing our resources. This has to be done by the Gitxsan Nation, for the Gitxsan Nation, for our Gitxsan children. While our Gitxsan society has changed immensely since I was young, our hereditary government has remained since time immemorial. Our hereditary chiefs carry on from our ancestral leaders to support our people and lay the groundwork for our sustainable, self-sufficient future. We will break the chain of colonialism, set the stage for our Majagale, our youth to flourish. We will be stronger, intertwined, and educated, successful, self-sufficient people, dedicated supporting each other. Our Majagale is why we're here. Simgiigyet.